G'day guys, Jules20 here and welcome back to Springwood. It really feels like a long time since I've recorded a Springwood episode, so I am super happy to be bringing you episode 21 and to actually be doing a build, because the last episode I did was not a building episode. I'll get into the last episode I released very shortly, because did some kind of interesting things there, and it was definitely by a lot of the help from you guys. But before I do, just want to get into what I'm building in this episode. We kind of do some pretty exciting things, and number one exciting thing is we're crossing the water, and that might not be a huge deal for people who are probably just tuning in for the very first time, but for me, crossing the river of Springwood is like a huge deal, because I've been building the city for about a year, which is like ridiculous, and like crossing the river just kind of feels like opening up a whole new chapter. And the reason why I am crossing the river is because I just did a recent trip to the States, and I stopped in at LA for a bit and went to New York, and I've put a lot of inspiration from things that I saw and places that I went to, and a lot of those places were, I saw quite a lot of docking areas. I visited an airport, went to I feel like 1,000 airports, and also just cruising around the highways, because they're so different to the highways in Australia. So kind of got quite a lot of inspiration from the highways and the docks and the airports. So this episode is pretty much all about highways and the dock, which I can't wait to bring you. I pretty much only just start working on the dock. I don't actually finish it. I don't do any detailing really. It's only mostly planning in this episode, and might not seem like a lot, but in terms of Springwood, when I kind of focus primarily on the layout of a city, it's kind of like a big deal. It takes me ages to figure out the general layout and where things fit and how it works. For instance, when I first started this project, Springwood was always going to be a massive city, and I knew the limitations of making a giant city from other YouTubers who kind of, felt the pressure of how big it is and how you can't really do huge amounts of detail. It's, definitely a massive challenge. And I do quite a bit of detail in Springwood, but I also, a lot of the city is not detailed, it's just there. And, I kind of leave it like that, because if there's something to take away from watching this channel, or for me just building in the city, it's just kind of like the general layout of a city. I find layouts of cities really interesting. I love the way that they form. I love the way that they kind of fit together and they grow organically. When I say organically, I mean they grow over time, and buildings kind of spawn in places and highways kind of spring up in places, and that sort of stuff really interests me. So that's my huge focus in Springwood. I've got other series where I kind of focus more on culture, being Asara, and I also kind of follow with my other series, City Skylines Down Under, way more on detailing, because it's like a smaller place. But Springwood, it's just I can detail a lot of things, but I can't detail everything. It's just too big a project. So I can't remember why I started talking about that, but because I'm not going to detail this dock in this episode. But I will be detailing that in the next episode. So in the next couple of weeks, you can expect me to finish off this giant freighting dock and kind of start working on the airport, which I know a lot of people have been asking about since the very first episode 6 months ago. So, you know, you can be happy about that. But yeah, a little bit about this project that I'm doing right now. So figuring out the layout of this area took forever, and the reason why is because there's like once you start looking at Google Earth and figuring out how cities naturally look, you know, you just get into like a whirlpool of detail and the way things fit together. For instance, looking at Google Earth right now, and it's just, you know, next to the airport there is always some sort of industrial shipping freight area. You know, it's usually like a hub of where they transport goods. So it's really important that I have this dock in this area. And then there's all just intricate areas within this one area that it's really important that I kind of incorporate. So the reason why something like just formatting, like planning an area like this takes so long is, you know, I got to make sure that there's highways, and then I go, okay, well, if there's highways, there's got to be exits and entrances to the highway. And then where do those highways lead? Are they leading to the city? Is that the best route? Is that where a mayor would put a highway? And then there's also places like, there's also things to consider, like, you know, when you build a dock, are they just shipping freights, like containers and goods, or is it industrial, or is it, you know, like all this sort of stuff you start thinking about, you just go like, you know, like what have I started, and why do I go into this much detail? But, you know, this is the detail I really like, is the detail about how cities kind of form and how they operate, and the reasons why these, you know, why there is a dock next to a airport, or, you know, why do they sit on the outer edges of a city? So, you know, that's why I'm kind of into that. And a bit about what I'm doing right now is I'm detailing this highway, which is kind of tricky because you can't use the prop line tool on elevated highways. I only just figured that out as I was kind of working on it. But yeah, just working on a bit of detail in this area. I'm pulling heaps of inspiration for a highway that I cruised along on in LA a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, I was heading to Venice Beach, and, you know, just driving along this highway, and it's just the width of the highway was just so ridiculous, because in Australia, we just like, you know, highways are probably like 3 lanes max. That's like, we have some big highways, but like, we don't have them like we do, like you guys do in Los Angeles. So it's like really like exciting kind of cruising along this highway. And what I really liked about it is like, it's so iconic. I remember just like watching movies where, like, you know, people cruise down it, or even like cops, and you just go like, oh man, that's that highway. So, you know, one thing that I was thinking about when I was in LA was just to like make my own my own type of highway that kind of replicated it. So, you know, this is my crack at it, and just detailing it a little bit. And like I said before, I don't detail the entire city. I'm only ever detail fractions of it. This one area is an area that I guess is going to have a lot of attention, so I detail quite a bit of it, but, you know, only really for screenshots and videos and things like that. I never would go into this much detail in every inch of my city. It'd just be craziness. So yeah, I have just recently been to the US. I had a stopover in LA for a couple of hours, about 6 hours, and then you know, met up with Strict Toaster, which was really cool. He showed me around Venice Beach and a couple of different areas that I'd always kind of wanted to visit. And then I went to New York and like just saw so many awesome buildings and so many places, and was really interested in the docks of New York. And like, I know like quite a lot of them are changed. A lot of them are now like expensive apartments or boutique shops and things like that, and tourist traps and things. But there's like still quite a lot of areas that still kind of, you know, are still quite industrious, you know, when you kind of leave the city. And those are the places that I was really interested in. More so, I really love areas that are kind of areas that interest me are places, you know, like project housing, or places that you know, have a lot of different cultures and things like that. And they're the sort of places that I really want to incorporate into Springwood. And I've been following this channel for a while. Springwood's pretty much take home message is establishing a feeling of a natural, real city, and also the feeling of culture within a city, within a video game, which is just ridiculous. And I always wonder what would people think if they just kind of tuned in and they had no idea what this game was and what the hell I'm talking about. But you know, that sort of stuff's really fun, and it's really cool to actually build stuff like that. So, you know, that's what Springwood's all about. So they're the sort of places I was really interested in. Also hung out with Wickelhausen, which is you know, really fun. He showed me the High Line, which is this like old railway system that, you know, it's elevated railway system that kind of runs for about 2 kilometers, and it's just awesome. It's been now turned into a garden, and you can just walk along the entire stretch and walk through all these old industrial areas and get some really awesome views of the city. So yeah, it was cool hanging out with him too. He's actually built a couple of things for me that's I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm not even gonna tell you what they are, but you know, if you follow him and you know what I'm about to start building, you might have a bit of an idea of what he might have built for me. But yeah, I'll get into that a little later on in a couple of other episodes. But I'm super excited to show you what he's come up with. We've been sitting on this for about a month and a half now, and you know, both me and B Squigglehausen are just like super excited to show you what's going on. But yeah, that was pretty much my trip, and it was really fun, and super sad to be home, but super happy to be back recording for City Skylines again, because you know, I do love that. I've actually been building quite a lot since I've been rambling, and some of the things that I've been building is I built that little headland out there. That's I'm taking huge amounts of inspiration from this headland that sits out in LA, pretty close to their LAX airport. I saw it as I was flying in and thought that'd be a pretty sweet build. And I've also started planning out this dock that I'm going to be putting in. And you know, getting back to what I was talking about, you know, the structure of a city and the structure of Springwood, is something that I like discovered about looking at these areas is that docks kind of operate, you know, they're like, I don't know, when I built a dock ages ago, probably about, you know, in episode 2 or something, I just built a dock, and it was just like, you know, there was a fish market and just general use places. And you know, and then I was gonna build like a general use dock over here, but then, you know, I was gonna have like another kind of fish market-esque place, and goods, and maybe oil, and a couple of other places. But in this general area, the only real imports of a dock would just be goods and you know, general shipping crates and things like that. So, you know, that's something that I learned about here, and I didn't really expect that I was just going to dedicate this whole harbor to just containers and goods, which is kind of you know, which kind of like just really kind of threw me a bit. So you know, I had to kind of cater for that and think about where I'm going to hold all the oil that's going to be imported and exported into, well, just exported from Springwood. And yeah, so you know, this one area is just me figuring out, you know, I'm actually going to be just dedicating this one little harbor, this one big harbor to just freight and goods. And you know, just quickly what I'm doing right now, another thing that's really important in Springwood is everything for me. Like, one of the most important things for me is scale. And it's really important that everything kind of fits together. It's all in the same scale. You know, if a shipping container looks like this, then how big is the dock going to be, and how big is a ship going to be, and then how big is the highway in comparison to that. It's really annoying when you build something and then you realize it's just doesn't flow with the rest of the city. I end up just deleting it if it doesn't work like that. So, you know, it really pays to figure out the general layout of your city, and it's really important to figure out how big everything else is, and maybe even choose. So I basically subscribed to a whole bunch of different shipping cargo ships, and I just placed them all down over there and built the harbor, built the dock with those shipping liners in mind, and was just going to choose one or two that I was going to really use, because each creator, everybody who makes their assets kind of create in a different formats to each other. So it's really important to choose the ones that are in scale with your city and in scale with what you build. So that's the kind of really important thing for me. And I'm beginning to work on the dock, and I'm using some assets that Ronix released a couple of weeks ago, and I was super happy when he did it, because I was scrolling the asset collection on the workshop, just trying to find some cool realistic dock pieces, and I just could not find it. And then he released these, so I'm super chuffed about that. And then I didn't really know how to use it, because I've had so many cracks at it. And he's released a really comprehensive guide on using the dock. I've just linked it in the description below. I'd highly recommend going to check that out if you're interested in using these dock pieces. It's really good tutorial. I use it a bit because my build's like not as structured as his. It's I had to kind of just go off on my own little tangent, and mine's definitely doesn't fit as well as he does. So I highly recommend just following his guide and not making any obscure edges like me, because you will get a lot of edges that just don't sit flush, and that's basically what I did. But I'm not going to get into too much detail about how to use or the technique that I'm doing to achieve this, because Ronix does a far better job in far less time. So go check that out. So this dock is it's huge, and it's totally dedicated to freight. Huge amounts of shipping containers, and it's something that I've been really wanting to put into Springwood. It's like the finished product looks pretty cool, and I really can't wait to get into the detail in the next episode. I just couldn't fit it in this episode. It's just too much work. I do get into a tiny bit of detail, but really not enough. I do something pretty cool here, and it's been inspired from Strict Toaster, who made a put all these what's it called, a man-made reef, and something that I actually had no idea about, and I kind of wanted to have a crack. And I was also pulling some inspiration from GTA. And there's missions where you have to retrieve things underneath the docks in Los Santos, and there's all these barges underneath and pipes and things like that. Well, I just wanted to create something like that, and sunk a couple of ships and put some concrete slabs in and some barges. And right now I'm just using P. Delmo's mountain grass that I use in like everything. It's just the best ground cover ever. So I'm just plopping that down in heaps in places, and just other bits of props just to kind of create a bit of like a rusty, rundown reef that's full of just crates that have just fallen in, and cargo that's just been dropped or dumped, and rubbish, and other stuff like that. Kind of tempted to chuck like a barge down there as well, like a big shipping liner that's maybe sunk or something, but maybe that's not like totally realistic, but I think it would look pretty cool too. And the look's pretty good. It's great from some angles, not great from other angles, but you just gotta angle yourself pretty right, and it looks pretty cool. Ooh. Just looking at my notes of things that I was meant to talk about, and I forgot to talk about my last episode. The last episode I released was episode 20, and it was a city tour. If you haven't seen it already, please go and check it out. It took bloody forever. It was like the biggest project ever. And, in a nutshell, if you haven't seen it, it's a 10-minute video of Springwood done in one continuous take. It's an idea I've had for ages. I just wanted to get Springwood way more detailed and up and running before I achieved it. 20th episode just kind of rolled around, and it just worked well. But it took forever, and it was ridiculous, and I kind of took on the challenge to add lots of After Effects into it. But no regrets. I really enjoyed doing it. But if you haven't checked it out, definitely go and check it out, because I am super proud of it, and it was a lot of fun. But it was really cool having a lot of the names that has popped up over the course of Springwood episodes from you guys. So yeah, thanks everyone who's been contributing to the names of places in Springwood. It's great having the same faces pop up all the time in the comments and mentioning things. Sometimes I might feel like I don't take your ideas on board, but trust me, as soon as I see a good one, I write it down and revisit it later. I'm also really excited to record more videos like that. I've got a whole bunch of other ideas that I'm pretty keen to get into. They'll just be some side projects, I guess. Because like I've said many times, Springwood is definitely not a series where I'm teaching you how to build a dock or a road or anything like that. Springwood is primarily about the culture of this place and establishing a non-real city into a real city. I just playing Grand Theft Auto, I'm the guy who spends half the time looking at the Coke bottle that's on the ground rather than shooting my fellow friends on the other side of the world. I love the detail they put into that game, and City Skylines is no exception. You can just put in just as much detail, and especially with a community of people who are following this channel and who are super into it, who adds their take on cities and their take on the game, what we can actually achieve in it, and that's super fun and super cool. So always love creating with you guys. This last little bit of the episode, and I am just planning out this dock. Like I said, I really don't go into much detail. I wanted to save that for episode 22, where I can just detail this entire place. But like I said, it's really, really important to get a feel for this area and place down things to kind of have an idea of where things are going to sit eventually. But yeah, guys, that is pretty much it for the episodes. Like always, thank you so much for tuning in. Always really, really appreciate it. And if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to my channel, and liking this video actually just helps. I don't know the algorithm of YouTube and how it works, but I'm pretty sure if you just like it, then lots of other people are gonna see it, and then I just get super chuffed when I wake up in the morning and find out that people have been watching my channel. But hey, if there's just 3 people watch it, I'll also be happy. I just love making this game. I love just making this city. And it's super good to be back. So, thanks for being patient and waiting for the next episode. It's good to be back. In the next episode, I will be detailing this dock. There is so much I want to achieve in it. I actually want to plop in. I'm gonna shoot you some YouTube video, not YouTube videos, Google images right now of the area that I'm going for, and the things that I want to achieve on this dock and the way I want it to look. And the reason why I had to pull out of putting heaps of detail into this episode is, once I started working on it, I realized that there's so much that I really need to consider, for instance, where the trucks come in and how they unload, and the systems that are in place to make sure that, this area runs smooth and efficiently. Oh my God. Those things are really important. And if I miss those details, I'm going to be really pissed off myself. So, it's really important that I kind of get those in and don't mess it up. But guys, that's it for this episode. Thanks again for tuning in. It's always much appreciated, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Catch you later.